I felt it leave. I did not feel 1 ounce of the chronic fatigue in my body at all. I'm on the road, it's my time, taking control of my life. I want to run the red lights, I've got to run this show.
Hello and welcome to the Recovery Project. And Anaya has had a 3-year chronic fatigue journey, chronic fatigue syndrome, and has recovered from that. Welcome.
Oh, wow. Hi.
What could you tell us about what it was like for you having chronic fatigue syndrome?
Wow. I wasn't the most fun I've had in my life, but at the same time, exactly.
I know
but
that journey well.
At the same time, it was also, I wouldn't necessarily want to go through it again, but I'm so grateful for what I learned and what it brought me. In terms of my own evolution as a person and what I learned from it and what I gained from it.
Nice.
Yeah. And, for me, I just knew I was going to get better. I didn't know.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know why I knew that. And I didn't know why I thought that, because I certainly hadn't seen any good stories about it or anything like that. But I just knew that this wasn't what my life was going to be.
Wow, that's cool, because for me, I had a very different experience. When I had chronic fatigue, I'm being told all the time by, doctors and specialists that, there is no cure. And, I was just terrified that that could be my whole life. And I just didn't know if I would ever find a way out. Thankfully, I did. But,
Yeah.
it's great that through 3 years of illness, somehow you never lost your hope that it would come right.
Possibly because after I got diagnosed, I never went back to the doctor. Might have had something to do with it. I didn't go to any specialists. I didn't really do any conventional medicine, because it just didn't have anything to offer me.
Or joining support groups, because man, that can be depressing.
Oh my goodness. I did join an unnamed support group for 20 seconds. Maybe. I read a few of the posts and I just got off there. It was just absolutely toxic.
Yeah.
And heartbreaking too, because there are a lot of desperate people out there.
Throughout my 11 years of chronic fatigue, I was always still seeking an answer. So I think holding that hope, and that's the whole purpose of this series, is that we just want to go, here are people who have recovered, and here's what they did.
Yeah,
so
hope is huge.
You knew it would come right. That's really interesting. What else did you experience during that illness?
Yeah, so I got to the place where I wasn't bedridden, but I was certainly spending a lot of time on the couch. I might do something like empty the dishwasher, which was my good big sense of achievement, which might take 5 minutes, and then I would be resting for half an hour and so on. So my day was sort of constructed of that, and maybe just trying to do a few things to satisfy that sort of achiever within that felt like they still wanted and needed to contribute to the household. I did have restless legs, heart palpitations, just the usual fatigue,
brain fog.
Yeah, exactly. As I forget what I had, brain fog.
Because it's just so far separate from where we are now, isn't it? It's sort of, you have to really think, how bad was it?
Yeah. I remember looking at an orange, right? And I just couldn't remember what it was called, and I knew that it was called the same as its color. But I just couldn't. I just couldn't remember what it was. It was incredible. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Because it was so hard to go to a supermarket. That was exhausting. And so I hardly ever went. And if I did go, I could only buy 1 or 2 items, because I couldn't handle all the shelves and trying to see along. And, I'd have to kind of walk like this with blinkers.
Yeah.
And I'd get to the checkout with my 2 items and then be too tired to remember my PIN number. And I'd be standing there in tears. I can't even remember my own PIN.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, for me, one of the biggest sort of stressors, triggers, was really emotional and social stress. I pretty much didn't spend any time around people other than my husband for a couple of years. my chickens and my dog were very integral in my healing, because they were just, constantly loving, entertaining, entertainment, and that was really fantastic. So I mean, there's a lot of things that I did, and sometimes I might try something and it didn't quite work for now, so then I'd just put it in the maybe later basket, and then maybe a month later I would be able to do that thing. So I did it, I really spent a lot of time working on calming my body, calming my system, meditation, mindfulness, spending time in nature, bare feet, listening to music, all that kind of stuff. I couldn't read books. I couldn't really drive. I couldn't watch TV. No. I just didn't have the nous for it. I couldn't concentrate for that long.
I used to listen to talking books because that was about all I could manage.
Oh, I find them hard at the best of times.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That was easier for me than screen lights as well.
Interesting. Yeah. And then so I did, I was doing all that stuff. I didn't actually, it was really interesting because a lot of people seem to get really hung up on the exercise and needing to do it, and that being proof that they're getting better. And so feeling like they needed to push it out, the whole pacing thing. And I never really got hooked into that, which I found very interesting, because for me, my only real hobbies running and biking and kayaking and swimming and doing any kind of sport or outdoor activity. And I didn't get fixated on it. I just pretty much, I thought, what do I feel like I can do today? And I did a third of it. And I never timed it, particularly much. I just did with distances, and I just really made a big effort to listen to my body and to respond to my needs, and knowing that the harder you push it, the harder it pushes back. And also that the personal qualities and characteristics and quirks that led me to develop chronic fatigue, the never feeling like I was doing enough, constantly pushing myself, feeling like I had to do more, achieve more, be more, sort of lack of self-worth. I knew that all of those things, ignoring my body, ignoring being tired, I knew that all of those things weren't going to be things that would help me get out of it. So it's just sort of really recognizing that I had to really develop some more character, some more resilience, and the ability to really respond and deal with stressors and things in life in a different way. So I'm definitely a whole lot more chilled out than I was, without doubt. I have this wonderful ability to laugh at myself that I wasn't really very good at before, and to just really let things go that just don't matter, because so much of what we worry about doesn't matter.
Yeah. But what do you think caused you to develop chronic fatigue syndrome?
Well, it's pretty funny, really, because a few things. I had about 3 people close to me die within quite a short space of time. Then I started teaching at primary school. I'd been at secondary school, so I started teaching at primary school, which is a whole new number of greeblies and germs and contagion, being exposed to that. And I had a viral infection from that.
Yeah.
And I also was training for an adventure race. And at the beginning of the year, I took a job I didn't really want as well. And at the beginning of the year, I remember thinking, I just want to be normal and just do things in the weekend, because I'd work so hard during the week and get so stressed out. Often my weekends, I was just pretty flat, and a lot of teachers are, just couldn't really do a lot of things I really enjoyed. So at the beginning of the year, I thought, right, I'm going to ignore being tired. I'm going to prioritize doing my things. So I was getting up at 5:30 in the morning. I was going for a run before work.
Yeah.
And I was doing all that, and I was ignoring my body. Like, I consciously chose to ignore my body.
Yeah. And you pushed and
And
pushed while in a more demanding job with more bugs around you
yeah,
and all the physical stuff.
yeah. And surprise, things
Yeah.
fell apart.
Body
How did
keeps
that happen?
talking louder and louder. And if we don't listen, it talks louder and louder.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it was screaming, and I was still like, oh, yeah, you'll be all right.
Mm,
I'll be all right in 2 weeks. Oh, okay, maybe I'll be right 4 weeks. Or maybe it's going to take 3 months for me to come right. And then at six
mm,
months, maybe, maybe I just need to really relax. This might actually take a little bit longer than I had
mm,
hoped or anticipated. And when I finally realized that, part of me was really able to just sort of relax. And I say surrender to the process, but I say that it's a funny word, surrendering. And I've had people tell me that before, and I've just been like, are you kidding me? But it's sort of for me, it's kind of like a really dynamic interplay between accepting where I am right now in this moment
mm.
and holding hope and a
Yeah.
vision of a greater future. And it's a dance. And some
Yes.
and I think I'd been quite part of my personality had been really trying to be very consistent all the time, and that I felt that that's what integrity was, and I felt like I had to be quite black and white about things. I wasn't really able to hold and embrace my polarities,
Mm,
and or sort of two seemingly conflicting realities, which it can feel like accepting how things are right now while holding hope for
mm.
and visualizing a greater future are. So I think that
Yeah.
as we are more gentle and kind and compassionate and loving towards ourselves, we can
Yeah.
embrace that there are things about us that seem contradictory. That's
Mm,
life, and that's just being human, and that's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think like you, I reached a point of surrender eventually. Eventually, I
Mm,
mean, I'd say I was probably in my eighth or ninth year of illness
mm,
before I just got out of resistance and
mm.
daily, you know, terror and anger that my life was being ruined this way.
Yeah,
But I did finally reach that point of, well, if this is what it is, this is what it is, and that's okay.
yeah, and that's that for me. I could only accept things in this moment.
Mm,
But the more often I accepted in this moment and this moment and this moment, and
mm,
then I'd be accepting it for seconds and then minutes and then hours and
yeah.
then days. And so I found a peace with it. So I wasn't reacting, I wasn't
Mm,
fighting myself. And, that's part of, because every time you're not accepting it, it's almost like you kind of trigger your sympathetic nervous system, I
yeah,
think,
big
because
time.
you're in this place of resistance. So if you can just
And
accept
fear.
it right now, yeah, and right now, and right
Mm,
now, and the more you do that, it creates momentum and enables you to enter this place where you've got this great foundation to
mm.
heal and recover.
Yeah, I agree. I remember just being able to accept, right now it's a beautiful sunny day and I am sitting on the beach and my friends are in the office. So right now,
Yeah.
just for this moment, it's
Mm,
okay. Like it's
yeah,
overall, I still didn't like, that my life was not moving forward like everyone else's, but just in
yeah,
this moment, this is kind of cool. And then
yeah,
gradually I could accept it a bit more and a bit more while still absolutely maintaining the search for an answer.
yeah. And for me, that was one of the most powerful lessons that I got from it all, was that
Mm,
I don't know if you say Eckhart Tolle or Eckhart Tolle, but anyway,
mm,
he talks about the power of now. And before I'd been like, yeah, okay, yeah. Now I get it. I
mm,
understand how powerful it is to just be so fully present and accept
mm.
right now. And that was an absolute gift, because I'd spent so much of my time before in the future or in the past.
Yeah.
I read my journals and my diaries,
Mm,
and they're all about when I wasn't feeling good, about what I wanted to do, and
mm.
or what happened in the past. None
Yeah.
of it was really how I'm
Yeah.
feeling right now.
Yeah. I think I
Mm,
spent a lot of time in the past and mainly the past more than the future for me while I was ill,
mm,
just replaying old stuff over and over. And yeah.
yeah.
So it sounds like your journey through illness was quite different to mine, that throughout you knew that you'd get better. You also sound like you were aware that calmness was going to be important in your recovery, and you were
Mm.
actively doing things to help your body to calm down.
Mm.
Um, so that's also quite different from me.
Yeah.
What then happened that then you could really get out of illness altogether?
Well, I think there's a few attitudes and things. Number one, as soon as I realized what was going on, I was recovering. I was healing. I decided I was healing and recovering. And I knew that recovery and healing doesn't look the way you think it's going to look. You know, it can look like this, but it's the general trajectory that's important. And that healing is never linear, it's always up and down. So I really focused on that. I also took care with my diet. I did also alternative things, sort of energy work and things like that. I really looked at my beliefs and like what energy was for me, what it meant for me, whether I believed it was limited, where I felt it came from, all of those kinds of things, and just became increasingly aware of the things that were subconsciously driving my behavior, like my achievement behavior, trying to prove myself and things like that. And so I looked deep into a lot of those things as well, because I wanted to really fully heal and come out of this. And I was really willing to embrace a different way of living and a different way of being in the world, because the old way hadn't really worked for me at all. So I did that. I spent a lot of time visualizing what I wanted to do and how I wanted to be. And
Which
it's really,
creates neural pathways for creating those things to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And doing, things like laughter yoga, which reduce the amount of cortisol in your body, produces a cocktail of good feel-good hormones, and that also facilitates rewiring. And I would say I was 90%, 95% better.
Cool.
And I could, I could feel it leaving my body. And then I listened to a talk that you did, and you were talking about posture and body language. And that was the last thing I needed. That was the final chocolate chip in the cookie. It was, the picture was complete. So I just started really paying attention to my posture and how I spoke and my body language. And actually throughout it, I had never said that I have this, I suffer from this, I am this. I'd always avoided saying that. I didn't really know what to say. And I know that your program talks about that a lot. But what I had been saying is I'm experiencing this. And for me, that was really powerful, because it enables a gap between what's going on with you, what you're experiencing, and who you are, who you want to be. And in that gap is such a powerful place of transformation and choice and possibility. And when you say I am this, then you're kind of determining your future. And so that was really interesting. I also decided to very consciously believe in miracles, because if you don't, they won't happen, right? So what's the harm? It's not going to do anyone any harm. So I was fully believing in miracles. And circling back to your posturing, so that I started to be more conscious about how I was speaking about things. I did what you suggested, and I asked my family to treat me like I was well, and to, stop sort of beating around the bush, mollycoddling or whatever. And I just really, it was mainly the posture and just really focusing on, opening to that energy, and that really, really helped. I also did a couple of programs, your one included, that gave me a very good holistic sort of broad picture of things, and that really helped me, get that routine. and do the neural rewiring to support ongoing good health. what was supposed to be ongoing good health, but anyway, that's another story. And and I could, like, I just felt it leave. I felt it leave. I did not feel 1 ounce of the chronic fatigue in my body at all. And
at what stage was that? From when? Because when you came to the switch, was that when you were already about 90% better?
oh, I was better then.
Oh, you were
Yeah,
all
when I
better by
did it, I
then.
was actually better
You're
then.
actually all better.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. So you did
But
that more as like, wellness understanding and maintenance of good health.
yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes. And also, because I'd already signed up to it, and I was like, well, I did that happen for a reason.
Right.
Yeah. Let's just go with the flow and trust that. And so, that really helped me, and that really helped keep me well. And within, it's funny because within feeling 100%, I'd been running, I'd started running a little bit, and I'd done a few runs, and I think it was 3 months after I'd sort of started running. So maybe I'd been for, I don't know, it was only 15 runs or something. And I went for a run with this woman from Winnipeg. And she was, I think she's 16 or 17 years younger than me. She was only in her 20s, in her late 20s. And, Winnipeg is incredibly flat. And I took her on, because she was just visiting town, and so I just took her on this really cool run. You go up Mount Dewar and down Skipper's Keen and back up, so it's quite a few vertical meters. And so we went on this run. It was 10 or 15k, and she said to me, oh, I'm doing the Motor Tapu Marathon on Saturday, and it was Wednesday. And I was like, she's from Winnipeg. If she thinks she can do the Motor Tapu Marathon, which is, I can't remember how many vertical meters, but it's a lot of vertical meters, and it is 42.2k, then I can do it. Why not? Why not? So I signed up on Wednesday, and I did the marathon on Saturday. And
far out.
Yeah, because I believed I energy for me was no longer limited. It was no longer something that I spent. And I became very conscious about how I take in energy. And how I take in energy is by doing things and going places that bring me joy. And so being out in the mountains, I was just constantly being replenished. And
nice.
I mean, we had a ball. We walked up the hills and ran the rest. And in the last 5k, it was me sort of dragging her on. And honestly, I felt like I could have done another 10k. It was incredible.
Wow, that's amazing. Only 3 months into starting running again after 3 years of chronic fatigue.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit nutty, isn't it? But yeah. I've never imagined that. I mean, until it happened.
I can't imagine doing that at any point in time.
And so it just goes to show that, the most amazing things are possible. Just so far beyond. We really limit ourselves and hold ourselves back and hold ourselves down.
So how would you, if you were summing up your chronic fatigue recovery journey and giving advice to someone who's got chronic fatigue syndrome and wants to know what they should do, what would you say?
That's a good question. Big question. Hope is gold. You can recover. And you will recover. And keep listening to your body and responding to it right now, and seek help and seek support in positive places, in places that are helpful, inspiring, and that make you feel hope. Definitely quit doom surfing. Doom surfing, very bad. Watch heaps of these kinds of things, and you can do this. You've got this.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing your recovery from chronic fatigue with us. And next week we will be having Anaya back second stage
because she's not her only journey. She's also going to be sharing with us about her recovery from rheumatoid arthritis.
So tune in next week to hear more great wisdom from Anaya.
Thanks.
Well,
Thanks,
good.
Mel.
Thank you. See you later.